Hi guys, how you doing? Welcome back to my tutorial. Last time we discussed the purpose of this tutorial, which is to learn how to develop packages. Packages are like components. We discussed this in the last chapter of this tutorial. Um, and it was mostly an introduction in that chapter. And today we are going to be filling out the composer.json file, which is where we kind of stopped the last time, I guess. We also discussed gits. Yeah, I think that was basically the two things we talked about: git and composer.json file. And what the tutorial was about was mostly just an introduction. So today we are going to be filling out the composer.json file and creating a readme file. Actually, I think I should just go ahead and create a readme file right now. So it's going to be readme.md. The readme file of a project, add to git repository. So do you want to add the following file to git? Said if you choose to cancel and all that stuff. So basically we're going to be adding this to git repository. Remember, git repository, it is the version control software we're going to be using to like push this software to GitHub, right? And then commit, pull, and things like that. So it's basically to just manage the software so that other developers can use it. I also discussed this in the last tutorial. So if you haven't watch that, please check it out. The reason why I've created this readme file is that I think at some point I might have to do some explaining here, before we proceed. So let's get started. Before filling out this composer.json file, I think I have a couple of things I should mention. In the last tutorial, I did not mention the requirements for this tutorial. So there are things that are required, there are things you're supposed to know before you can follow in this tutorial, and there are things you're supposed to have in your system. So one of those things is PHP 7.1. Anything above 7.0 is fine. So what I have running on my machine here is 7.4, PHP 7.4.27, right? But anything above 7.0 is fine, PHP 7. And that is because we are going to be using type hinting and a couple of PHP 7 functions, right? Yep. I think the other thing is that I didn't mention is that this is not a beginner's course. It's kind of mid-level to an extent. I mean, you can be a beginner learning, but you would have to know PHP first, right? And there is that. You have to know PHP first to be able to follow on with this course. So I'm not going to be teaching the fundamentals of PHP. You don't have to know PHP. You can also know any other programming language, and I think you should be able to follow if the programming language is OOP based, object oriented, right? That's because we are going to be building validator, like a validator framework that would validate user input into the blog system, right? It's mostly just simulation, but yeah, that is still how it works in real projects. So we're going to build a validator framework, like series of classes and um, both concrete classes and abstract classes and things like that, and just using the OOP functions to like extend our classes and stuffs, and make our code look clean and super organized. So you have to know the basics, and you have to have PHP 7.0 and above. So that is that. Well, let's get started with filling out the composer.json file. So this is the composer.json file here. We are going to take each node and discuss it. So the name, the things you see here, name, description, type. If you check the last tutorial, this was kind of auto filled. So whenever you type composer in it and hit enter, composer would ask you, so long as you have composer running. And I think the other thing I need to mention is that you need to have composer running. You need to install composer on your computer as well. So I just typed in composer now, and you can see this means that, yeah, I have composer 2.0. So if you don't have composer, this won't work. So yeah, I think that is another requirement that I did not mention. So please go and download composer. This is their website, getcomposer.org, and then you can download, yeah, download composer here. So yep, that's it as well. So we're going to be taking each node. So this is a JSON file, composer.json, and then this is a property, and then this is the value of the property. Right. So we're going to be taking each node or each JSON property and discussing it. So the first node you would see in a composer file is, and it's good to just discuss these details because most times no one tells you this, like it's not important, right? It's not necessary, so no one really talks about it. But yeah, it's important you know what's going on behind the scene. Composer is used to manage libraries, right? And in doing so, if you don't understand things properly, things might break, or you might eventually get lost, trying to debug something that has to do with composer or a library that you're trying to use or extend or something like that. So it's nice to know these things as well. So the name is Echo, which is my name. These are all pre-filled. Echo blog post, which is like the blog post package you're trying to build. So this is the vendor name. So I'm just using my surname as the vendor name, and I am using blog post as the package. The description is this. If you look at the previous tutorial, I kind of fill this in my terminal. Again, composer init would ask you for these details, and you just fill them in. And then description is learning package development, and yeah, so you can just say your description is anything really. Then type is library. I discussed why as well. You can also choose project as an option, but for the sake of this tutorial, and given that we are not building for a specific project such as WordPress, we're not building like a WordPress plugin or anything, we're going to be using library. It's kind of like general. The license is MIT. There are other licenses as well, like to be honest, I can't even remember any of their names, but this is like the most common license. And yeah, so this is not super important, to be honest. It's just like license is important, but not like for the purpose of this tutorial. Then the authors, you can have more than one author. You can have a lot of people author a package, which is usually the case most of the time. The name, you have these nodes here. You have the name, you have the email. My name is this. That is my email as well. You have the role. So I'm going to put author here as the role. So this is another property in the author's property. So the role, I would say, what am I going to be using? Software engineer. Yeah. Oh no, this is, I don't think this is very appropriate. I would just say author or main author, anything, to be honest. Like, it doesn't really affect the program. And then you have homepage. So this is like if you have a personal website or anything like that. So for this, I'll be using my GitHub. This is my GitHub. Let me just open it here. Yeah. So this is my GitHub. I'll be using this. I'm just going to paste this in at the home page, and yeah, that covers the author. And then the minimum stability will be dev. I think we've done that. And preferred stable should be true. And this essentially means that preferred stable true. This essentially means that whenever composer is trying to resolve dependencies, right, you should go for the most stable packages, right? The most stable. So you should prefer the most stable packages. And we have config file. So what I'm trying to do is fill out composer.json file. I don't have these things offhead. I don't think anyone should. It makes no sense. So I'm just looking over at my other screen to get the values, and then I would explain them. So this is false. Optimize autoloader. Autoloader, we'll discuss autoloader in detail just now. Give me a few minutes. We'll discuss what that is. Sort packages. So this should be true. Sort packages, it's basically sorting the package in the vendor folder. So we'll get to that point. But yeah, for now, sort packages is true. So whatever packages we are going to be using, right, we need it to be sorted essentially. So that is what that is. So we are going to be like sorting it by its name. So you have a package with A, with starting with A, and then you have another package starting with C, another package starting with B. So obviously the A comes first, and then the B, and then the C, and so on and so forth, right? The C package, right? Okay, so the preferred install should be dist distributed. Preferred install is dist. Yup. Then yeah, I think this covers the config part of the composer.json file and the autoload. Before discussing autoload, okay, I think it's good that we should talk about it now. So this autoload is it's a way to kind of load classes that you'll be using. For instance, if we have if for instance we are extending a package, for instance when you do composer require carbon or composer require any package that you're using, right, and then you're able to just use the namespace and just use the command use. I'm going to explain that just now, but what we're trying, this autoload is essentially going to help us to load classes out of the box without having to require those classes in the file, right? So let me just fill this out. So okay, before filling that out, let's do this. This is the readme file, and I'm just trying to make an example of something here. 1 second, please. So in the past, right, if you want to just take a look at what I'm doing now. In the past, if you have a PHP file, let's say or what should I use? Let's say man, for instance, man.php, which is a file, and the man.php file is extending a function. Let's say the function is sleep. The man needs to sleep, a man needs to sleep, a man needs to rest, or let's say the function is rest, and the function belongs to a class called util. Let's say util.php, which contains the functions like resting, eating, and other things that a human being, has to perform, to be functional, things that you would absolutely need to do, like eat, sleep, rest, and so on and so forth. And then you have the file that is extending this function, this class. In the past, when we did not have composer.json, when we didn't have composer, composer is a dependency manager, right? It's used to manage a dependency. So whenever you need something from another developer and it's in a repository, and then the developer has deployed it, in a sense, you can use composer if it's in you can use composer to like pull that package into your own software and use it, right? In the past, to do this, you would have to clone the developer's work or the engineer's work, maybe using a flash drive, and then plug it into your own system, copy out the files, and then when you've copied out the files, you then have to require the specific class. For instance, in this case, we are requiring a class called util, which contains the function sleep, rest, eat, and so on and so forth, right? So we're requiring that class. So in the past, this is what we did. It would say require, and then this keyword require would come before a string, and the string would be, let's say the name of the class is in a directory. Let's say the directory is